Hello class, so I just wanted to spend a few minutes going over the feedback tool we will use for peer reviews in this class. The tool is called Feedback Fruits, and it allows for a much more streamlined peer review process than a regular discussion board would. So you've already completed the first or the second step here, I guess. And so you've seen this page before when you submitted your initial paragraph. As you saw here, there's going to be specific instructions, and they will tell you the 3 steps that you have to do and when each step is due. So you're going to submit the assignment, you're going to give feedback, and then you're going to review your feedback each time we do this. So the first or the second step here you've already completed. You've already handed in this assignment or your initial assignment, and so that will have its own deadline. So you've completed that by the deadline. After you hand in your assignment, step 3 will be to give feedback to yourself and then give some feedback to your peers. So basically what you'll do is load up your own paragraph. There will be some specific questions to answer and a rubric to fill out as you evaluate your own paragraph. And it's important that you take this seriously when you're giving feedback to yourself, because this is how you're going to grow as a writer. You're going to become more able to catch your own mistakes and see your own strengths and weaknesses and make improvements. So you'll need to do that first, is give some feedback to yourself. Next, you'll be assigned 2 peers to give feedback to. So you'll go through that same process. You'll see their submissions here. You'll be able to load those up, and then you will go in, answer the questions provided, and then fill out the rubric for those documents. As you do this, it's important to note that you, in the system where you see their files, you'll be able to also highlight things. You can mark specific phrases or specific punctuation, specific sentences, so you can highlight and comment on specific things. And that's a really useful tool to give specific feedback. So say you're commenting on grammar or something like that. It's really important that you highlight a grammar error and then identify it. So if you see a sentence fragment, highlight that sentence fragment and let your peer know this is a sentence fragment right here. That's going to be a lot more helpful than just saying, I saw some sentence fragments in your paragraph, but not showing them where those are. So because you can highlight it, it's really easy. Make sure you do that as needed. And depending on the assignment, there may be more or less requirements for certain things. Another thing to consider here is, as you're giving feedback, there are certain aspects that you'll be required to give feedback on. And so sometimes you'll have a suggestion for that specific aspect. So it'll be easy to say, oh, here's this thing you're doing, here's where you should improve. And as always, we want to be constructive in our feedback, so don't be afraid to point out how they can improve, but try to be tactful and just be polite in the way that you phrase it. So you want to give them some feedback, but sometimes as you're commenting, you'll realize this peer is doing a really good job in this aspect. I don't really know what to say because they're doing a good job. So if that's the case and you're required to leave a comment anyways, what you can do is talk about what they're doing a good job at. So maybe highlight some specific examples and explain how they're doing a good job. So that way, if you have a comment box that you're required to fill out and you're thinking they've already done a good job here, be specific about what they're doing a good job with for that aspect and talk about that. That way you can still fill that comment box with meaningful feedback. So we want to balance, we want to give them praise and we want to give them meaningful suggestions. And so if you see something that you need to suggest, then by all means do that. If they're doing a good job on a certain aspect and you need to comment on it, then point out specifically how they're doing a good job. So that's the third step, is to give feedback to yourself, give feedback to your peers, and you'll be able to see, how many days left and what the deadline is for each aspect of this assignment. Once you've given feedback, the last step will be to go back and read your feedback to yourself and read your peers' feedback to you. And you actually are required to do this to get full points on this entire process, because if you're not reading the feedback you're getting, you're really not benefiting from this process as much as you could. So there will be a deadline by which you will need to go and read your feedback, and that will factor into your score as well. So there's basically 3 steps: turn in the assignment, give feedback, and then read your feedback. And it will be like this every time we have a critique where you're working with peers and giving each other feedback. But always just remember, give the kind of feedback that you want to receive. Spend time on this and make it meaningful. And also be kind and compassionate as you're giving your feedback, but that doesn't mean you don't point out how they can improve, right? So be tactful in how you say it, but by all means give them the feedback that they need. And as you take this process seriously, you'll find that you and your peers are growing together as writers. So that's the idea. And then once the grades are published, you'll be able to see your grade as well. If at any time you have questions throughout this process, don't hesitate to send me a message.